In 2015, Tom King published a story called Black Death in America. It detailed the life of Henry Johnson, an African-American World War I vet and hero. This story has two narratives. The first narrative details Johnson's journey in the First World War, where he saved the life of a fellow soldier in the Argonne Forest in France while he fought off a German raid. However, the second story in that text is much more challenging. We have Johnson facing explicit racism, alcoholism, trauma, a deteriorating relationship with his own family, and 11 years later, his death and utter poverty. And that was only 11 years after being hailed as a war hero. He was called Black Death because he was able to fight off a German raid. And now the moniker means something else. This is an important text that covers numerous critical issues in society. It is also an 8-page comic book. Within 8 pages, Tom King and artist John Paul DeLeon were able to cover numerous important issues and talk about an unsung hero in American history. And just to be clear, they're not the only writers who do this. We have numerous writers within the comic book industry who talk about extremely important issues in society. Alison Bechdel's Fun Home, Judd Winnick's Pedro and Me, Jean Luen Yang's Superman Smashes the Klan, and John Ridley's current ongoing series, The Other History of the DC Universe. We have all these important comic books that explore insanely important issues in our current society. Yet, in our post-secondary and secondary educational institutes, all of our educational institutions, we don't often utilize comic books, and that's a loss for our learners. We often say our learners are diverse. They have diverse needs. However, our curriculum, our texts don't actually reflect that diversity. Instead, we primarily utilize books, short online text, short stories, plays, and sometimes when us teachers need a break from lesson planning, a movie. Now, that's not diversity in our text. That's excluding comics, which are key texts that extremely help our ELLs and our learners with diverse needs. Now, when comic book has a picture next to language, that's combining two things to help us better understand the concept. And frankly, students can get exhausted from reading book after book after book. They can be utterly disinterested. Sometimes it's hard to do critical reading back to back to back with the same text or the same style of text. And it's that same disinterest that we as adults often find when we buy furniture and see that when we've bought this futon, there's no actual instructions that have images. Without that, I can't build a futon. Images with text that accompany them help us better understand concepts. Whether it's a map of the United States that has cities, landmarks, and borders to understand which state is which state. Whether it's Braj Khatru's 3 circles of linguistics in English. Or whether it's understanding the relationships between the characters in Shakespeare's The Tempest. These visuals help our mind understand concepts, and this is applicable to our students as well. Now, images are powerful things. In Black Death in America, we see Henry Johnson, after giving a speech, being berated heavily by a white superior officer. He's being berated due to the fact that he tried to use his speech to discuss the racism he felt and experienced while serving his country. we have him not only yelled at, but we have text that helps us understand the racism that is here. For example, the term boy is emboldened in order to demonstrate the patronizing nature of this rant that he's experiencing, and also the racist nature of it. And finally, in this dialogue, we see him have spit on his cheek from this commanding officer. It's a powerful and disturbing image, but these images, in their power, help us understand things. Without images and text commingling, we wouldn't understand concepts as well as we need to. If visual arts weren't important, we wouldn't have billboards. We wouldn't have news articles that have images to help us understand what's happening. We wouldn't have textbooks with visuals. We wouldn't have memes. I'm particularly proud of this one. I made it. We wouldn't have flyers and public announcements telling you how to wear a mask. Just a heads up, you cover your mouth and your nose. Although this isn't a TED Talk on how to wear a mask, but most comic book characters often do wear a mask. Mr. Miracle, for example. But back to straight comics. Now, in the world of education, we have a large community called ELLs. ELLs are English language learners. These learners have a very rigorous educational experience because they are not only experiencing the educational standard curriculum as most students, but they're also learning how to be proficient in American standardized English. They've got a double whammy. They are doing two major things at once. Comics can help them understand American standardized English even better. These images that accompany language will help them understand what these terms mean. It's hard to understand what Hamlet's tone is, and with an image such as displaying the dialogue there will help students understand why Hamlet is angry at certain points or why Ophelia is distraught. Now, these images alongside text will help ELLs understand what we're trying to display, and it's going to help them understand American standardized English. To be clear, yes, reading straight text is obviously a great help to learn American standardized English. However, images accompanied by text are also a great boon to these students, and we need to do the best that we can to make sure they're succeeding. There's this belief that in the world of academia and literature, that pop culture and comics are lesser, they're inferior, and that's false. These texts that exist in that area are critical, and how can we not say they're critical when some of our most important writers today write comics? Ta-Nehisi Coates has been writing Black Panther since 2016, and recently he started writing Captain America. And when we see our students today, oftentimes we all know of some students who are so passionate about the field of comic books and comic book movies that on a random standard Monday in the middle of July, they'll be wearing a comic book costume such as Black Panther, just on a standard Monday, nowhere near Halloween, nothing special happening, just wearing a costume because they love it. How can we, especially as educators, teach them while disregarding their interest? Doing such a thing disillusions them from the academic process. It tells them that what they are reading, what they're interested in, what they're passionate about is lesser. And that is not beneficial to our students. Now, in the spring of 2018, I worked at a before school, after school program. And in this program, I had the privilege of being able to create a comic book checkout system. With this system, students were able to look at a list of comics that I had cultivated, from my own personal collection, and it would state author, subject, main character in focus, a bit of a summary, year, and if they could look at it. They would write their name on an index card, and then the next morning I would bring those comics in so they could read it. It was something I was very proud of. Later that year, I had a student who attended who I didn't know prior to that semester. Yet he became enthralled with the program as he was able to find a place where he could discuss comic books and read them. His own family multiple times informed me how he was much more enthusiastic about going to school, how he was excited to have a space where he could truly talk about that which he loved. And personally, it was a pleasure talking to him about comic books on a daily basis. Before the first bell of the day, before school even started, we had students reading comics. We had them being primed for the curriculum that day. Educators often know that the earliest period of the day, the first period, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. courses, we're teaching, yes, but we're also trying to wake up our students a little bit, make sure they're getting ready, making sure they don't doze off. Yet, the students in this program were able to already be aware and have the gears turning in their head because they'd already started reading, because they were that interested in reading comics before the day had started. It's a valuable tool, and we need to use it. Now, the benefits of comics in the classroom cannot be overstated. We as educators need to use every tool that we have to better the educational process for our students, to make the ELLs more invested, to make students who are more visual learners more interested, and to make students who just love comics read more. Comics are a key tool in the educational process, and it's about time we start using them more actively. Thank you.